In August 2016, Pope Francis initiated a significant move by merging certain offices within the Roman Curia. In a surprising development, three of the Catholic Church's most prominent cardinals, Luis Tagle, Peter Turkson, and Pietro Parolin, have reportedly addressed Pope Francis regarding critical issues within the Vatican. This unexpected act has sent ripples through the Catholic community, sparking discussions about internal conflicts, theological disagreements, and the Church's future direction. Although Pope Francis is renowned for his progressive leadership style, the involvement of these senior cardinals indicates that substantial divisions may be emerging within the Vatican's leadership. But who are these cardinals, and what led to their unprecedented challenge? If you're curious to learn more, make sure to subscribe and stay updated on all the latest stories. Cardinal Luis Tagle. A humble shepherd of the global South, Cardinal Luis Tagle, often called Cheeto by those close to him, is one of the most charismatic and beloved figures in the Catholic Church. Born on June 21, 1957, in Manila, Philippines, Tagle grew up in a modest household in the historic city of Imus in Cavite. His father, Manuel, worked in a small local business, while his mother, Milagros, was a homemaker. Raised in a family that valued simplicity and faith, Tagle's early life was steeped in devotion and service to the Church. Tagle pursued his education with dedication, eventually earning a degree in pre-divinity studies at Ateneo de Manila University, a Jesuit-run institution known for its academic rigor. He later entered San Jose Seminary, where his priestly vocation began to take shape. Ordained a priest on February 27, 1982, he quickly became known for his intellectual depth, eloquence, and ability to connect with people from all walks of life. Tagle's keen intellect led him to further his theological studies at the Catholic University of America in Washington, D.C., where he earned a doctorate in sacred theology. His dissertation focused on episcopal collegiality, reflecting his deep interest in fostering unity and collaboration within the church hierarchy. Upon returning to the Philippines, he immersed himself in pastoral ministry, theological teaching, and writing. In 2001, Tagle was appointed Bishop of Imus, a diocese not far from his hometown. His tenure was marked by a focus on social justice, poverty alleviation, and strengthening community ties. Known for his humble demeanor, Tagle eschewed the trappings of his office, often walking or biking through neighborhoods to personally connect with his flock. His down-to-earth approach earned him a reputation as a people's bishop, deeply loved and respected by those he served. In 2011, Pope Benedict XVI appointed Tagle as the Archbishop of Manila, one of the most significant posts in the Catholic Church in Asia. This appointment placed him in the global spotlight, where his dynamic preaching and heartfelt empathy resonated far beyond the Philippines. He became a voice for the marginalized, often speaking out on issues such as poverty, migration, and the environment. Tagle's influence continued to grow under Pope Francis, who elevated him to the rank of Cardinal in 2012. His appointment as prefect of the Congregation for the Evangelization of Peoples in 2019 further underscored his importance within the Vatican. In this role, he oversees missionary activities and supports the Church's presence in developing regions, reflecting his lifelong commitment to the global South. Known for his emotional, heartfelt homilies and ability to bridge divides, Tagle embodies Pope Francis's vision of a compassionate, outward-facing church. His critics, however, argue that his gentle approach may sometimes lack the firmness needed to confront institutional challenges. Despite this, Tagle's unwavering focus on mercy and inclusivity has endeared him to millions, making him a prominent figure in the Catholic Church's efforts to navigate the complexities of the modern world. He's a shepherd who walks closely with his flock, no matter where the path leads. Cardinal Pietro Parolin. The Vatican's diplomatic maestro, Cardinal Pietro Parolin, the Vatican Secretary of State and one of its most influential figures, is often described as the quiet architect of the Church's diplomacy. Born on January 17, 1955, in Schiavon, a small town in northern Italy, Parolin grew up in a deeply Catholic family. His father, who worked in a hardware store, passed away when Pietro was just 10 years old. This loss profoundly shaped the young boy, instilling in him a sense of resilience and purpose. Pietro entered the seminary in Vicenza as a teenager, drawn by an early vocation to the priesthood. He was ordained a priest on April 27, 1980, at the age of 25. Recognized for his intellectual promise, he pursued further studies in canon law at the Pontifical Gregorian University in Rome and later obtained a degree in diplomacy at the Pontifical Ecclesiastical Academy. His training positioned him as an expert in the nuanced and complex world of church governance and international relations. Parolin entered the Holy See's diplomatic service in 1986, marking the beginning of a career that would see him navigate some of the Church's most delicate global relationships. Early assignments took him to Nigeria and Mexico, where he gained first-hand experience of the challenges faced by local Catholic communities. In 2002, Parolin was appointed Under-Secretary for Relations with States, effectively making him the Vatican's Deputy Foreign Minister. In this role, he became a key negotiator in some of the Church's most challenging diplomatic efforts, including delicate discussions with China over the appointment of bishops, engagement with Vietnam's communist government, and efforts to normalize relations with Israel. Parolin's ability to balance diplomacy with adherence to Catholic principles earned him a reputation as a skilled and pragmatic negotiator. In 2013, Pope Francis named Parolin as the Vatican Secretary of State, placing him at the helm of the Church's administrative and diplomatic machinery. This role is second only to the Pope in terms of influence, making Parolin a central figure in implementing the Holy See's policies worldwide. Under his leadership, the Vatican has tackled critical global issues, from climate change and migration to human trafficking and international conflict. The primary cause of today's refugee and migrant crisis is man-made, namely wars and conflicts, Parolin once stated. He played a pivotal role in the 2014 diplomatic breakthrough between the United States and Cuba, facilitating dialogue that led to the restoration of relations after decades of hostility. Known for his calm demeanor and meticulous approach, Parolin is respected for his ability to manage complex situations with tact and discretion. While his diplomacy often takes place behind the scenes, his impact is profound. Parolin's critics, however, sometimes view him as overly cautious, prioritizing consensus over bold action. Despite the challenges, Parolin remains steadfast in his commitment to the Church's mission. His fluency in multiple languages, deep understanding of global affairs, and unwavering dedication make him an invaluable asset to Pope Francis. Cardinal Parolin's life exemplifies the quiet power of diplomacy and faith as a bridge builder between the Vatican and the world. He embodies the Church's efforts to promote peace, justice, and unity on the global stage. Cardinal Peter Turkson, a voice for social justice and global solidarity. Cardinal Peter Turkson, born on October 11, 1948, in the small town of Waso Nsutha, Ghana, is one of the most prominent and influential African cardinals in the Catholic Church. His life story reflects both personal resilience and a deep commitment to the social teachings of the Church, particularly in addressing global poverty, justice, and the environment. Turkson was raised in a large family in a country still coming to terms with its independence from colonial rule. His father, Joseph Turkson, worked as a farmer, and his mother, Irene, was a homemaker. Growing up in rural Ghana, Turkson's early life was marked by the challenges of a young nation struggling to establish its identity. His Catholic faith, however, was a constant source of strength and inspiration. Turkson entered seminary at an early age, demonstrating a keen interest in theology and religious life. Ordained a priest on July 20, 1975, he went on to further his studies in Rome, earning a doctorate in theology from the Pontifical University of St. Thomas Aquinas. His academic background equipped him with the knowledge and skills to address both the spiritual and practical needs of the Church's faithful, particularly in the context of Africa's rapidly changing social and political landscape. After returning to Ghana, Turkson became increasingly active in the pastoral life of the country. He served in various diocesan roles, including as Bishop of Sekondi Takoradi from 1992 until his appointment as Archbishop of Cape Coast in 2003. It was during this time that Turkson gained international attention for his advocacy of social justice and his focus on the needs of Africa's marginalized populations. His rise within the Vatican came in 2009 when Pope Benedict XVI appointed him as the President of the Pontifical Council for Justice and Peace, a position that would see Turkson become one of the Church's foremost voices on global issues such as poverty, the economy, and environmental stewardship. Turkson's passionate work in these areas made him a key figure in Pope Francis's efforts to bring greater attention to the social teachings of the Church, including issues like climate change, human trafficking, and income inequality. As a cardinal, Turkson became known for his outspoken views on the need for a more just and equitable world. His advocacy for the poor and marginalized aligned with the broader social mission of the Church, particularly Pope Francis's focus on Laudato Si', the Pope's 2015 encyclical on the environment. Turkson's deep concern for environmental justice led him to push for stronger international cooperation on climate change and for a rethinking of how the global economy should be structured to ensure it serves humanity rather than exploiting it. Perhaps one of his most notable contributions was his role in drafting the 2011 Economy of Francesco initiative, which called for a radical transformation of the global economic system, urging a focus on human dignity over profits. His work highlighted the ways in which economic inequality and the environmental crisis are deeply intertwined, and he urged governments, businesses, and individuals alike to recognize the urgency of these issues. Cardinal Turkson's leadership has not been without challenges. As an African cardinal in a predominantly European institution, he has faced resistance from those who are skeptical of his vision for a more inclusive church. His critiques of the global economic system and his calls for stronger action on climate change have made him a controversial figure at times. Nonetheless, his steady faith and unwavering commitment to social justice have earned him admiration across the world, especially among those who believe the Church must be a force for peace and compassion on the global stage. Cardinal Peter Parolin work reflects a life dedicated to social justice and solidarity with the most vulnerable. His voice is a constant reminder to the global Church and beyond that the mission of Christ extends far beyond the altar and into the realms of politics, economics, and human rights. Through his tireless efforts, Turkson continues to advocate for a world that is just, inclusive and respectful of the dignity of all people, especially the poor and marginalized. The Catholic Musketeers Cardinals Luis Tagle, Pietro Parolin and Peter Turkson share a range of qualities and experiences that make them prominent figures in the Catholic Church. While their individual backgrounds are distinct, Tagle, hailing from the Philippines, Parolin from Italy, and Turkson from Ghana, each of them has made significant contributions to the global Church, earning respect both within the Vatican and among the faithful worldwide. Their shared achievements reflect their dedication to the core mission of the Catholic Church, to serve humanity, uphold the gospel, and foster global unity. Potential to lead the papacy. Within reach. One of the most significant commonalities among Cardinals Tagle, Parolin, and Turkson is their potential to one day become Pope. Each of them brings a unique set of strengths to the table, and all have been considered papal candidates who could potentially ascend to the papacy. Their positions within the Vatican, their global influence, and their embodiment of Pope Francis's vision make them plausible contenders in a future conclave. Luis Tagle, for example, is seen as a papal figure due to his dynamic leadership, particularly in the global South. His charismatic presence and focus on social justice resonate with Pope Francis's vision of a church that reaches out to the poor and marginalized. His leadership in the Philippines, especially during natural disasters like Typhoon Haiyan, has demonstrated his ability to provide pastoral care under extreme circumstances. His strong theological background and dedication to the Church's missionary work have garnered him considerable respect worldwide. Tagle's deep understanding of the Church's role in addressing societal issues, combined with his calm and compassionate demeanor, make him a strong contender for the papacy. Pietro Parolin, on the other hand, stands as a leading figure due to his diplomatic prowess and experience in managing the Vatican's international relations. As the current Secretary of State, Parolin has played a pivotal role in shaping the Church's global policies, including significant diplomatic breakthroughs with countries like Cuba and China. His calm, pragmatic approach to diplomacy, along with his understanding of the intricacies of global politics, has earned him the respect of world leaders and Vatican officials alike. In many ways, Parolin represents the ideal church leader for an increasingly interconnected and politically complex world. Development as a core business. Development, then, is a core business of this dicastery, and that's why we who serve this dicastery have derived a lot of insight. The confrontation, a tension brews between tradition and change. The atmosphere within the Vatican had been charged for months. Rumors of tension between traditionalist factions and those advocating for a more modern, inclusive approach to Catholicism had reached a boiling point. For Cardinals Luis Tagle, Pietro Parolin, and Peter Turkson, men deeply committed to the vision of Pope Francis, the growing divide was becoming impossible to ignore. Though they had supported the Pope's progressive agenda, his leadership was now being questioned by a significant faction within the Church. They feared that the ongoing struggle could fracture the unity of the Catholic community. The three cardinals had spent years working tirelessly alongside Pope Francis, helping him champion his messages of mercy, social justice, and outreach to the poor and marginalized. However, in recent months, a deeper conflict had begun to brew, one that threatened to undo the very unity they had fought for. The divide between traditionalist Catholics, who longed for a return to more conservative practices and interpretations of church doctrine, and modern Christians, who supported Pope Francis's vision of a church that embraces the challenges of the contemporary world, had reached a critical point. Rising concerns over church leadership. The confrontation stemmed from several concerns that had been brewing among conservative and traditional factions of the Church. Pope Francis has pushed for reforms that emphasize inclusivity, social justice, and modernization. However, not all members of the Church's leadership agree with this direction. Cardinals Tagle, Turkson, and Parolin, each holding significant roles in Vatican diplomacy, interfaith dialogue, and global outreach, have voiced concerns about the impact of these changes on the Church's doctrine and unity. One of the key issues at hand is Pope Francis's approach to controversial social topics, including LGBTQ+ rights, communion for divorced and remarried Catholics, and the decentralization of Church authority. While Tagle has often been seen as an ally of Francis, his stance on certain theological matters has led to speculation that he may be growing uneasy with the Pope's rapid reforms. Meanwhile, Turkson and Parolin, known for their more traditional perspectives, have been increasingly vocal about their reservations. The role of Vatican diplomacy. Pietro Parolin, the Vatican Secretary of State, is a seasoned diplomat who has played a crucial role in international relations, particularly with China and Russia. Reports indicate that tensions have arisen over the handling of Vatican-China relations. Now, the Vatican isn't commenting, nor is it confirming any of these reports, particularly regarding the controversial agreement on bishop appointments. Critics argue that the deal has weakened the Church's independence in China, leading to greater government interference. Parolin, who initially supported the agreement, is now believed to be reassessing its long-term effects. "We are trying just to solve our problem peacefully." Peter Turkson, an advocate for social justice and environmental issues, has worked closely with Pope Francis on matters such as climate change and economic inequality. However, his resignation from the dicastery for promoting integral human development raised speculation that he may have been dissatisfied with the Vatican's internal management. His involvement in this confrontation suggests a potential shift in his stance toward the Pope's leadership. A growing divide. The tension escalated following the Pope's calls for greater inclusivity and a reimagining of Catholic teachings to address global challenges like poverty, climate change, and migration. While these messages resonated deeply with many across the world, they alienated a vocal minority within the Church who saw these changes as a departure from long-held Catholic traditions. In particular, the Pope's emphasis on mercy and his willingness to extend compassion to those living in sin or outside the traditional bounds of the Church have come under fire from those who felt that such gestures compromised Catholic teachings on issues such as marriage, abortion, and LGBTQ+ rights. The growing opposition has resulted in harsh critiques from traditionalists, with some calling for the resignation of Pope Francis, accusing him of straying too far from the true teachings of the Church. The recent wave of resistance has become a battle for the heart of Catholicism, with each side fighting not just for influence within the Church, but for the soul of the institution itself. The Church, long known for its unity and ability to navigate through periods of great conflict, is now at risk of splintering in a way it has never before experienced in modern times. Cardinals Tagle, Parolin, and Turkson understood the severity of the situation. They recognized the importance of Pope Francis's message and feared that the ongoing war between traditionalists and modernists was not just undermining his authority, but threatening the very foundation of the Church's mission. The Church has always been a living, evolving institution, one that has adapted to the times while holding on to its core principles. Yet now, they face a crossroads where these core principles are being called into question by those who refuse to budge on their interpretations of Scripture and tradition. The Pope answers. The decision to confront the Pope was not taken lightly. These cardinals had long been trusted advisors and close allies of Pope Francis. They had been instrumental in pushing forward his initiatives on social justice, human rights, and environmental issues. Appealing to leaders, political leaders, business leaders, military leaders, "Can we please look at human beings?" But in this moment, they felt a deep responsibility to speak up, not just for themselves or for the Pope, but for the Church as a whole. The unity they had worked so hard to build was under siege, and they could not stand idly by as the forces of division threatened to rip apart the fabric of Catholicism. Luis Tagle, with his deep understanding of the Church's mission to serve the poor, saw the growing divide as a direct threat to the Gospel's call for compassion and inclusion. His experience in Manila, working with communities in crisis, had shown him that the Church could not afford to be divided by ideology or doctrine. He believed that the Pope's vision of a merciful Church, one that reached out to those on the margins of society, was more important than ever in a world increasingly polarized by political and cultural divisions. But the tensions within the Church were growing harder to ignore, and Tagle felt a sense of urgency in his need to address the issue with the Pope. Pietro Parolin, with his diplomatic acumen and role as the Vatican Secretary of State, understood the geopolitical implications of this divide. He feared that the continued infighting within the Church could weaken its global influence, particularly in the face of rising political extremism and religious intolerance around the world. Parolin was also acutely aware of the divisions within the Church's leadership, with some members using the dispute to question the legitimacy of the Pope's authority. The global Church, which he had worked so hard to unify through diplomacy, was now being pulled in different directions, threatening to unravel decades of progress. Peter Turkson, who had spent years advocating for social justice and global solidarity, was deeply concerned that the war between traditionalists and modernists was diverting the Church's attention away from the critical issues facing the world. As a cardinal from Africa, he understood the urgency of addressing global poverty, economic inequality, and environmental degradation, issues that were central to Pope Francis's mission. But he saw that the debate over doctrine and tradition was overshadowing these pressing concerns. Turkson feared that if the conflict continued, the Church would lose its ability to respond to the real-world crises that demanded its attention. "I find, first and foremost, God who enters into a relationship, for that is a nature, I think, of Scripture. It's God who enters into a relationship, and through that relationship devolves a history together." The three cardinals knew that the Church's survival depended on its ability to maintain unity in the face of division. They feared that the battle between traditionalists and modernists would not only undermine the Pope's authority, but also create an irreparable rift within the Church that could ultimately harm the global faithful. The time had come for them to confront Pope Francis, not in opposition to him, but to ensure that the message of mercy, unity, and compassion could endure. The weight of the moment, as they stood before Pope Francis, each cardinal knew the gravity of the situation. Their confrontation was not just a matter of doctrinal differences, it was a question of the future of the Church itself. They would not challenge the Pope's authority, but instead urge him to consider the implications of the growing divisions and the potential harm that continued infighting could cause to the Church's mission. The stakes were high. The very soul of Catholicism seemed to be in question. While some interpret this confrontation as a sign of deep division within the Church, others see it as a necessary dialogue between high-ranking Church officials. Dissent and debate have long been part of the Church's history, often leading to new doctrinal developments or policy adjustments. Whether this moment will escalate into a full-fledged crisis or lead to a renewed sense of unity remains to be seen. This unprecedented move by Tagle, Turkson, and Parolin left many religious leaders in shock. It raised fundamental questions about the Vatican's future. Will Pope Francis continue his progressive path despite resistance, or will he be forced to recalibrate his approach to maintain church unity? The coming months may provide the answers. Is it possible for modern and traditional Christians to coexist? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.